Good morning, Brian of London here in the forest in Tel Aviv. Hello, and I'm going to share it on Telegram as well. Let's do that. Where is me? So, like and share. Hi there. Well, this is the big one, right? Labour anti-Semitism. You're listening to Brian of London in the forest in Tel Aviv. And I have been watching the UK election stuff, listening to LBC, listening to the phone-ins, listening to people explain why they're voting Corbyn or why they're not voting Corbyn, listening to Jews crying on the radio because they're so worried about England. The Jewish Chronicle printed a huge front page article saying for Jews in the UK not to vote for Corbyn, vote for anything but Corbyn. And prominent now left Labour Party people saying vote for Boris, vote Conservative. It's sort of unprecedented that their dear leader could be like this. And I hear so much discussion of whether Corbyn is or isn't anti-Semitic, or whether the Labour Party is or isn't institutionally anti-Semitic. But nobody's talking about why Labour became anti-Semitic. Labour was the party of anti-racism. Labour is the party of diversity and everybody being, be nice to everybody. Why did Labour become anti-Semitic? And I'll tell you why. Barry, M23, thinks that Israel is committing genocide against the Palestinians. That is correct. That's the reason why. That's why the Labour Party is anti-Semitic. Not that Israel is committing genocide, because obviously, whilst we've been committing genocide against the Palestinians, their population has gone from 600,000 or 700,000 or 800,000 at most in 1948 to millions. So we're the worst. As I've always said, it's my favourite line. Jews excel at almost all forms of human endeavour. We excel in science, arts, literature. We are crap in two areas: professional golf and committing genocide. The professional golf one really stings. I don't know why, but despite millions of Jews playing golf at the weekends all across America and in other countries, we've just never had a significant major golf winner be Jewish. There was a guy called Corbyn. He was born Jewish, but he did convert to Christianity. So why is Labour anti-Semitism? What is behind the rise of Jew hatred in Europe? Unfortunately, Bat-Yor got this bang on right back in 2005, around about then when she was doing the tour for Eurabia. The reason, I would say, is the Palestinianization and the dimification of Europe. And these are both aspects of the influx of Islam to Europe. What happened was, and this started in the 60s and 70s, and it's culminated now in a position where in the UK, in a child's textbook in school, you will be told that Israelis kill Arabs. But you will not be told in the same textbooks that at that time, buses were blowing up every day. Restaurants were blowing up. You aren't presented with a proper appraisal of what is going on, the jihad that has been fought in Israel ever since we founded the country, because essentially the root is of Islam all throughout its holy texts, all throughout the life of their Prophet Muhammad. The second half of his life is one big struggle to have him accepted as the next prophet of the world. And who were one of the major groups resisting him? Well, there were little pockets of Jews, which he wiped out, beheaded personally in some cases. That is at the root of these millions and millions of people you've brought into Europe and into the UK and into the UK Labour Party. And you've adopted, the left within Europe and the rest of the world has adopted this Palestinianized narrative. And if you adopt the narrative that Jews are to blame, Jews are colonial invaders, we're not, we're obviously indigenous. Judea, the place called Judea is where Judaism had its cultural and spiritual awakening. Judea and the kingdom of Israel, it's obvious that's where Jews come from. It's not obvious that's where Arabic comes from. Arabic comes from Saudi Arabia, from the Arab Peninsula. So we've got an inversion. The left has more solidly bought this inversion than the right. We're not even discussing the far right because, as I always point out, the far right don't hold institutional power. There is not a far right anti-Semitism that is about to or could be on the verge of taking control of the British government. Whereas Corbyn's Jew hatred, Corbyn's anti-Semitism within his UK Labour Party, which stems from this reverse idea of colonialism, which was fed into you by a whole Marxist thing. The entire Palestinian cause was probably created in a university in Moscow. That's been bought hook, line and sinker. And guys like Corbyn, who come from this deep Marxist background, they've supported the IRA, they've supported terrorists all over the world that were backed by the Soviet Union, by a Marxist ideology. And of course, part of those was this Palestinian cause. They've always been in support of that. It's eaten into the rotten soul of the UK Labour Party. And by getting yourselves in the UK to a point where you could even consider voting for the UK Labour Party led by Corbyn, I mean, I saw the writing on the wall over 10 years ago. That's why I took my family out of the UK. If you do manage this time to vote in a strong, I am pro-Brexit, if you vote in a strong Boris-led government that does Brexit, then perhaps you can dodge this bullet. But I'm not even hopeful of that, because all throughout the UK, at every level of councils and the bureaucracy, you are now infiltrated with a mindset that has inverted the world, that believes that Jews have invaded Israel, which is just nonsense, and believe that Arabs are the indigenous people. You believe, though, if you believe that lie, your entire worldview will be wrong and clouded. And that's what's happened to the Labour Party. And it's happened in parts of the Conservative Party. It's happened in the Liberal Democrats dramatically. They're all... You got to root that out of your society, and that's much deeper and harder to root out. Jew hatred, anti-Semitism is just the expression of the ideas. Once you've allowed yourself to believe that Israelis are somehow subhuman, that Israelis are committing these terrible crimes all the time, once you believe that, once you don't bother to educate yourself, don't bother to come here, don't bother to come and stand on the... I think somebody's having a smoothie. So I'll take a break and do a channel ident. This is Brian of London in the forest in Tel Aviv, Bereshit Forest. It's a wonderful November day. It is reasonably warm, not the baking heat of summer, but still warm. And I'm sipping my delightfully culturally appropriated Italian coffee. And the ice has ground, so I'll get back to once you've brought into your being the lies. And I mean, I can go all the way back to the case of Muhammad al-Jura, the little kid hiding behind the rock. I'll bring this up again. It's worth talking about. This is an iconic image for the Arabs across the Arab world. It was referenced by Osama bin Laden in his justification for 9/11. It's a famous picture of a father shielding a child behind a concrete barrel, and bullets are inbound. You only see the child. The camera never swings to show you who's shooting at the child. And the film was shot by Palestinian stringer and given to a French TV crew, and they put it out in the French TV news, and it went worldwide and was syndicated, and it purported to show this child being shot and dying in his father's arms. The whole case has been gone over way later. It's fake news. There was no death of a child at that point. If a child called Muhammad al-Jura died, he didn't die there. The whole thing was a setup which came to be known by the word Pallywood, as one of my commenters has said. The entire creation of fake images became an industry. And in fact, there are 2 days worth of films shot at that location with people being thrown in ambulances, fake pictures of people with guns shooting into rooms, all staged photographs. Now, that shot behind the barrel, was it staged? Was it not? It's almost certain it was staged, and it's almost certain that nobody died there. But it became endemic, it became emblematic. It's rooted in the consciousness of so many people, and it will be rooted in the consciousness of the vast majority of the Jew-hating, Israel-hating Labour Party members who are trying to get Corbyn elected, and who Corbyn will not condemn because he can't condemn them, because he fundamentally comes from this Marxist background, which does invert the role of colonizer and indigenous people. So that's it. That's the roots of Labour Party anti-Semitism. And it's two roots, really. Islam is the primary, Israel is a secondary symptom of the Islamization of Europe. But once you accept that your countries are going to become Islamic, then you start following the Islamic rules, which is dimitude, and you start becoming, what's this? The Abrahamic covenant is with the Jews, not the Arab. That's correct. But what that doesn't take over is that Islam assumes the identity of both Christians and Jews. Islam says that Moses was a Jew who led the Israelites that Moses is a Muslim who led the Israelites who were Muslim into the land of Israel for the Muslims, and that only the good Jews were the ones who accepted the correct word of God, which is the Quran, which came before the Torah. This is Islamic orthodoxy. But you've been dhimmified. Dhimmified means you observe Islamic rules even when you don't have to. You have halal everywhere. You pay deference to women wearing scarves. You think that this is normal. You don't push back against it. You allow mosques to be built everywhere. That's the dhimmification of your society. You've submitted to their rules in advance of them conquering you. Because Islam doesn't conquer by becoming a majority. Islam has usually ruled over large swaths of the world during its colonial and its imperial phase. It ruled before it had majorities. It always ruled a minority. It always ruled a majority. Islam was the minority that ruled the majority. And that's what's happening to you. In your heads, you're following their rules. You have become dhimmified. The only way is to turn it around. And it's a fight. It's a very, very serious fight. And so, just to end here, the Labour Party anti-Semitism is the symptom of a far bigger problem in your society. And the bigger problem is that you have adopted a way of looking at the world that is both communist, Marxist derived, combined with an Islamic invasion that has totally changed the way you react to the world. And that, my friends, and that Israel isn't that important. It should not be important to you. Peace in Israel does not dictate peace in the rest of the Middle East. It will not stop the Shias and the Sunnis killing each other, which they were doing for 1,000 years before Israel was reborn. Israel is not that big a deal. Really, it isn't. But when people make it such a big deal, it's because they have adopted this Islamic mentality, and it will destroy your societies. So, vote Boris, vote Brexit Party if the two of them can do a decent deal on not splitting the vote. I'll probably be voting Conservative in the Ruislip and Northwood ward that I get to vote in, unless it looked like Brexit Party could win there. I mean, I like what Farage is saying, but I think it will be an absolute disaster if Farage and Boris at the end can't vote strategically such that they guarantee a strong majority in favour of any form of Brexit, because you've got to get away from Europe. And the reason I always was in favour of Brexit, it's the same thing. Europe's being conquered by this Islamic mentality and by dhimmification, and get away from Europe. At least then you can choose your own fate. All right, I'm Brian of London. Thanks for listening. Speak to you all next time.